been a quiet recess week at Parliament, but make no mistake, there has been a lot of action beyond New Zealand's borders. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon travelling to India, touting a breakthrough in progress on a free trade agreement. And in the United States, Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters sat down with top US officials from the second Trump administration. Kia ora, ko Anneke Smith aho, anei te pūrongo tō rangapū mō tēnei wiki. Welcome to Focus on Politics. The week began with a hiss and a roar. Christopher Luxon touching down in New Delhi with a win already under his belt.
Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, good to see you all. Kia ora, welcome to India. As you will have heard, we've had an economic breakthrough in the economic relationship with India, with the announcement of our comprehensive free trade agreement negotiations able to commence.
Progress on a free trade agreement with India, on track to be the world's third largest economy, stalled in 2016. Prime Minister Sir John Key said he had agreed to work towards an early conclusion of an FTA at the time, though formal negotiations never resumed. The coalition has made a concerted effort to get things moving again, after Mr Luxon promised he'd get a deal across the line this term during the last election campaign. Trade Minister Todd McClay has been spearheading this work, but the timeline remains murky.
Both sides have said we want to do it as quickly as we can. There's been a lot of discussion at official levels, not about the detail of agreement, but actually some of the ways forward and how we might look to deal with some of the issues that have come up in other negotiations. Both sides have said that we want to do it quickly, but we've also agreed we need to do a good job. And so I won't set out a timeline, but we have committed to getting on with the job.
How fast that job can be done is largely dependent on the dairy sticking point. A deal that includes agriculture would be an absolute boon for Kiwi farmers, but India is a tough negotiator and home to millions of small-scale rural farmers who'd rather not have their market flooded with New Zealand goods. Delhi trade expert Biswajit Das says if the government wants to get any deal, let alone a fast one, agriculture will need to stay out of it.
Any talk of opening dairy market, and this happened in the, like I said, in the RCEP negotiation, became a strict no here. So the skepticism started from there. And then there was sort of, I think, some hesitation to look closely and see what else could be done and what are the other areas where the trade could actually take place between these two countries and how to diversify trade between the two countries. Now, that kind of an exercise has never been done. And I think it's very important for us to look at ways in which we can sort of identify other areas, not get stuck with this problem with the dairy sector.
India rolled out the red carpet for the New Zealand delegation this week. There were folk dances at the airport and welcome banners with Christopher Luxon's face on it dotted along the drive to the hotel. Mr Luxon may have been determined to progress trade talks, but he was also intent on having a bit of fun, playing a spot of street cricket with some children and former Indian great Kapil Dev.
Had I win, till you lose.
We've got to see Kapil Dev bowl.
It was a light moment in an otherwise jam-packed schedule geared towards making the most of Mr Luxon's face-to-face time with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He says the bilateral relationship is getting stronger, picking up where they left off in conversations on the sidelines of the annual Southeast Asian Summit last October.
Look, really super constructive, really positive, very, very warm. Both sides of this relationship want to see it go to the next level. We both want to deepen, we want to broaden it, and we see huge opportunity of us working together to do so.
Mr Luxon says defence, tourism and tertiary education are areas where both countries want to work closer together. Though this didn't extend to Mr Modi's expressed confidence, the New Zealand government will crack down on its local Khalistan movement. The Indian Prime Minister calling protest action anti-India activity, Christopher Luxon disagrees.
For me, I understand the point he's making, but again, from New Zealand's point of view, we have very strong free speech laws and we've got a very good police force that enforces it.
The Prime Minister rounded out his time on the ground in New Delhi with business events. He had to dial back expectations over the timeline for a free trade agreement after joking about getting a deal done in 60 days with India's Trade Minister, telling reporters it's more a message than a promise.
I'd just say I wouldn't take the 60 to 90 days literally, but what I think you're seeing there very clearly is that two Prime Ministers and two Trade Ministers are sending messages very strongly to our respective systems that we expect them to continue to move at pace. It'll take as long as it takes. It's important that we negotiate as hard as we can to get the best deal we possibly can for New Zealanders. But as you can see, we're committed to getting a deal done this term.
What about the ambition to have this deal be the quickest one? Is that real?
Well, we're sending deliberately a message into our respective systems. We don't want this thing slowed up unnecessarily to be losing time. You can see the way that I operate, you can see the way that Prime Minister Modi operates, that we are wanting to do this differently. And that means we're not afraid to have the hard conversations. We need to have them. We know it'll be a very difficult negotiation. We're going to get the best deal we can for New Zealanders, and that'll ultimately take as long as it takes, I guess. But you can see that there is real intention and real juice and energy in the system to make sure that we keep moving at pace.
Just how that energy and juice translates to cold hard commitments on paper will become clearer in the coming months, with the first official round of negotiations kicking off in the next few weeks. In the meantime, Air New Zealand has announced it will get non-stop flights to India off the ground by the end of 2028, with the availability of suitable aircraft worldwide being the main barrier for faster progress. Some 14,000 kilometres away, Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters was meeting face-to-face with some of the top officials in Donald Trump's second administration. He went in clear-eyed, with the aim of both listening to the United States and anything it might want from New Zealand and communicating Aotearoa's position. Top of mind was any changes to US aid in the Pacific region, given concerns a withdrawal of support could leave a vacuum that China fills. Mr Peters sat down with the Acting Director of Foreign Assistance, Peter Mariko, but didn't leave with any assurances the Pacific won't be impacted.
Yeah, we do have a much better sense than we had before we arrived. We had a very frank and open discussion about that. The decisions on that are being made about mid-April, and we'll have to wait till then. But they get our point of view in terms of how essential it is in the blue continent, or the Pacific, so to speak, and what our collective role should be in it.
Winston Peters also met with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, where he got a readout of Wednesday's airstrikes in Gaza. The guts of what was discussed, including America's expectations of New Zealand, will remain under wraps until Mr Peters can brief his cabinet colleagues, though he's clear the US remains a vital part of the Pacific region.
Well, the US role is the most critical role of all, because of its size, because it is a Pacific nation, because since 2017 the first Trump administration turned more powerfully towards the Pacific in its oversight and in its concerns than any previous administration. And now they've got Trump back again, and we hope for the same into the future. That's what we talked about.
The set-piece event of the trip was a sit-down with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Speaking to political reporter Lillian Hanley afterwards, Mr Peters says America had done its homework and was aware of a boost in defence spending when he was last in government. He rebuffed criticism from the likes of former Prime Minister Helen Clark that asking the US what it wants from New Zealand is a shift away from an independent foreign policy. He says he used his time with Mr Rubio to remind him about New Zealand's track record on trade as potential tariffs loom large.
Well, it pays to understand history. I mean, the reality is, which we said to them, we've been waiting since 1870 when we first asked for a trade deal. President Grant was in the Oval Office, so to speak, then. That's 1870. And we were pointing out that it's 41 years since we freed up our economy in terms of tariffs and charges and protectionism for our economy. 41 years. So we just pointed it out, and they got it. We're a very patient country. We've got a record where we have a better record on this matter than the United States has. They understand that.
Is that enough, though, in terms of, you've spoken a lot about how you have emphasised that New Zealand is fair when it comes to its trading relationships. Is that going to be enough to ensure that New Zealand's not impacted by those decisions?
Well, when you say enough, there are evolving policies on US aid, the question of tariffs going forward. This will be clear in the months that await us now. But as of right here, right now, we've done as good as we possibly can, and we have reason to be very confident about where we're going in the future. Because we came here with our eyes wide open, understanding the world as it presently is, and knowing that they would understand that our record over a long, long period of time was one worth being respected. We had to remind them that, amongst other things, we're one of only 9 democracies this long. The United States is one of those countries. New Zealand's another one, and there's only 7 more. These sorts of fundamental things are worth reminding people about, because sometimes they take it for granted. And we made it very, very clear that, in wars, we've been there 2 years before the United States arrived twice. We lost more men than any every other nation on earth. We made some massive sacrifices all over the place. And what we want is a respect. We understand their message. We came to hear them out, and we asked them to hear us out.
A Foreign Affairs veteran, Mr Peters was best placed to put New Zealand's interests on the table, but it was still a considerable challenge and the stakes could not be higher, as evidenced by America's all-out trade war with Canada. International Relations Professor Robert Patman says Mr Peters divulged very little detail after his meetings, describing his language as guarded.
Essentially, both sides said, both the United States and New Zealand said, that the meeting reaffirmed a strong strong US-New Zealand partnership and a shared commitment to regional stability. There was less emphasis on shared values than had characterised the meeting. The last meeting, I think, Mr Peters had with Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, previous administration. But I felt there was a lot unsaid, really.
In terms of that guarded language and things being left unsaid, how much of that do you think is out of necessity, given Mr Peters has been clear that he actually needs to communicate some of the things discussed with his cabinet colleagues before he can go to the public with it?
No, I think that's fine. To be fair to Mr Peters, he may have also raised some difficult issues with the administration. Let's be quite clear, the Trump administration doesn't share our worldview, and there's no point in pretending otherwise. Yes, we like regional security like they do, and we like a nice bilateral relationship with them, but the Trump administration is based on America first. It sees the world run by great powers. And we don't share that view. We like multilateralism, whereas Mr Trump only likes multilateralism in as much as it serves American interests.
Helen Clark has been critical of the government's communication or rhetoric about its engagement with the US recently. Is it possible to be both agreeable and uphold our independent foreign policy?
Oh, absolutely. I think Jacinda Ardern did that in her first administration. Between 2017 and 2020, I think Jacinda Ardern didn't pick a fight with the Trump administration, but didn't hold back when she disagreed with it. And I think a two-track approach is the most realistic approach to take. There's a danger, by the way, of always appearing to be agreeable and smoothing over differences which actually exist. It seems that it may convey the false impression to the administration that we approve of what they're doing in relation to Canada, what they're doing in relation to Greenland, what they're doing in relation to Ukraine. We have a huge stake in the outcome. At the moment, there seems to be a consensus in Wellington, keeping our head down and smiling in the direction of the Trump administration will do it. And I'm just pointing out, I think a balance has to be struck between being very approachable, looking to agree where we can, but also firmly defending our interests. And I think, as a liberal democracy, we have a big interest in another liberal democracy not facing the sort of threats it is from the United States. And we ought to be able to say that to the United States. I think my bottom line is I think we should have a two-track approach rather than trying to agreeing where we can, but not holding back from when we believe our vital interests may be compromised by what the Trump administration may or may not be doing.
It will take a consistent, concerted and careful effort to strike a balance between agreeing with the United States where possible and advocating New Zealand's position when positions diverge. There is, of course, some precedent for this. New Zealand disagreed with the United States' illegal invasion of Iraq and stood firm under incredible pressure when America pushed back on its nuclear-free policy in the late 1980s. More than 20 years on from that nuclear stoush, New Zealand's agree to disagree skill set is well and truly being put to the test. That was Focus on Politics. I'm Anneke Smith. Thanks for joining us. Mā te wā.